Hello, it's Molly, and I wanted to give you all a brief overview and introduction to our Goddess Guidance Wheel of the Year for 2026. I've been so excited to share this with all of you, and I know a lot of you are waiting for these materials. So before I'm going to give a brief overview of the actual goddesses on the wheel. But before that, I did want to point out a couple of resources. So first of all is that we do have these beautiful, colorful altar cloths available in the November ritual kit that's currently in the Etsy shop. So one of these altar cloths is included with that kit. We also have lovely companion wooden goddess grids with the same design on them available in the Etsy shop as well. I am planning to use these throughout our live rituals throughout 2026. And then they're going to sync up with the ritual kits for 2026 as well. So you will receive things in the kits that you can add to the grid. If you don't want to buy something else, you will also, of course, have access to a printable paper one. This one I did on purple cardstock. It looks blue in my image, but it's purple. I got this one printed on purple cardstock, and so you can also print one out yourself and use it as a grid. So that is available to you as well. But there's those two purchasable options, and then also the print your own option. Okay, so our goddesses for 2026, and you have the printable card files as well in card sized and in mini size. And then as we actually reach the holidays, you will get the color packets that sync up with 30 Days of Goddess themes and materials and our Book of Magic Days content as well. So those are coming your way sequentially over every 6 weeks on the Goddess Magic community, Goddess Magic Mystery School community on Patreon. Okay, so I did want to cover a little bit about each of the goddesses. So we have the little booklet that gives you some information. I remember last year somebody asked me they would like more information about the goddesses and they wished I would make a video like that. By the time they asked, it was, basically it was midway through the year and it felt like it was too late to make a 2025 video. So I'm making a 2026 video instead. So first up for Imbolc, we have Sarasvati. And Sarasvati is the Hindu goddess of creation. She represents the force of life itself and the power of Shakti unleashed through the power of words and rivers. So she comes up for me most often with relationship to sacred words, to creativity and using our voice. Called the goddess of the word, she is one face of the Divine Mother as well as the goddess of learning. She's associated with music, song, dance, learning, wisdom, and creativity. So she is a perfect match for Imbolc on our wheel. Perfect match for Imbolc. And then next up for Ostara, we have Tiamat. Tiamat is another a powerful goddess, sometimes misunderstood. I remember learning about her for the first time, I believe, in a literature class because of the Epic of Gilgamesh, in which basically Tiamat is destroyed by her son Marduk. And I remember thinking at the time, I was, a 17-year-old college student, I remember thinking, this seems like a weird story, and I wonder if it is symbolizing the patriarchal takeover of goddess cultures. And so anyway, Tiamat is the Mesopotamian creation and chaos goddess who created the world from the primordial ooze of the oceans. The story of Marduk's defeat of Tiamat in the epic tale Gilgamesh can be read as a metaphor for the hostile takeover of goddess religions by patriarchal invaders and ideals. Tiamat is associated with creation and destruction, with chaos and rebirth. She's also associated with dragons, the sea, fertility, war, mothering, and primordial becoming. So she is a perfect goddess for Ostara and our theme of emergence and rebirth and coming forward with new things. So then I'm so excited to have Bast coming up or Bastet coming up with us for our Beltane, for our Beltane goddess is Bast. And Bast is an Egyptian warrior goddess. She's associated with cats, the sun, protection, righteous anger, magic, playfulness, delight, pleasure, and good health. She's also associated with wealth and prosperity, as well as with manifestation, energy, courage, ferocity, and personal will. So she's maybe not as much of a love goddess as we often associate with Beltane, but I was inspired to bring in her fiery, playful energy into our wheel this year. And so then for Litha, we have Tara or Tara, and Tara is represented with, there's lots of colors in Buddhist, so you will encounter white Tara, you will encounter green Tara, you will encounter different yellow Tara. There's different Taras, and they have different associations. So not to say they're all the same per se, but we just have a single Tara representation in the card. And so Tara is the Buddhist goddess of compassion, and she has multiple aspects and emanations that carry across Hindu and Tibetan traditions. So you will encounter different perspectives sometimes, because the Tibetan interpretation or presentation of her is different than the Hindu presentation of her. And I would like to say right now that when the Goddess Guidance Club goddesses are only intended to honor and learn about the goddesses. I'm not claiming that we to represent these traditions or to be an expert in these traditions. We are honoring the goddesses with our practices and explorations, but we are not claiming them as our own per se. We are exploring and honoring and not taking as our own. So anyway, wanted to mention that. Vedic mythology considers Tara to be the female embodiment of Om, the most sacred sound in the world, the originating sound of the universe itself, and the creative principle from which all else is born. She is associated with wisdom, healing, protection, and spiritual connection. She's also a goddess of inner peace, wisdom, contemplation, reflection, and centering. There are 21 different Taras. White Tara is the goddess of inner stillness and peace. Her sister Green Tara is a goddess of generation, action, and creation. So she is perfect for holding those creative, generative elements of the summer solstice or Litha. So lots to explore with Tara. And then we have for our Lammas goddess, we have Pele, and Pele is amazing. I'm so happy to have her on our wheel for this year. So Pele, of course, is the Hawaiian fire goddess, and associated. I'm noticing a lot of creation and destruction themes in my choices for this year. But anyway, she's associated with creation, destruction, volcanoes, and the very birth of islands and worlds themselves. She's also associated with creativity and inner fire, with power and self-agency, with birth and rebirth, creation and renewal, and with rage, fury, and righteous fiery anger. So lots to explore with Pele. She's perfect for this deep summer, but also the fire of transformation. I included her in what is historically my cauldron month because of that fire of transformation, alchemy, creation, and taking it all to the crucible and letting it change. And so that is where we have Pele represented as well. And so excited to include her. And then we have Hestia for the fall equinox or Mabon, and Hestia is I'm happy to see her represented as well. And these goddesses, I feel like they work together to create kind of a council of inspiration for us as the year unfolds. So even if we're not currently quote unquote on the goddess during our wheel explorations, we can still be informed by this whole council of goddesses. They work together to create this council of goddesses. So I actually carry these cards all together I'm going to get it over here, in a little bag that I keep in my daily practice bag. So they're all together informing me throughout the year. They're not just reserved for one point of the wheel, but they form this council of goddesses. So Hestia, most people are familiar with, is the Greek goddess of hearth and home. She's also associated with the Roman hearth goddess Vesta, and she's associated with community, family, home, warmth, and caring. One of the things I wanted to point out is all of these goddesses have multiple and multifaceted characteristics and associations. They are not just single, they're not just one-trick ponies. They're not just single. We're not looking at a cookbook and being like, I'm picking Hestia because I need hearth and home. I'm picking Pele because I need creation. These are multifaceted goddesses with lots of identity and lots of aspects to consider and explore. And they have a lot of complexity to them. They're not just boiled down to a single aspect. And it is, patriarchy that kind of boils them down to a single aspect or wants to box them in to one thing when they're really very complex. So community, family, home, warmth, and caring. She's also associated with stability, vitality, nourishment, and comfort, as well as with order and protection. Hestia inspires us to serve as priestesses of our own hearths. And that is how I most connect with Hestia, as a priestess of my own hearth. Then I'm very excited to have Baba Yaga on our wheel of the year for Samhain. And so I had several goddesses up for up for consideration for the Samhain spot. And I picked Baba Yaga, who was one of our newest cards last year. So she was a new introduction to the Story Goddess Oracle. And I'm excited to have her. So she can be a little intimidating as a goddess. I mean, so can Bast, so can Pele, so can Tiamat. Like, goddesses are not just, I think there's really a strange disservice that we do sometimes in kind of in New Age philosophies, as opposed to goddess-centered philosophies, have that kind of the goddess or the feminine is passive and receptive and, you know, the dark and the quiet and the like the non-active element. And so people will actually have the framework of, you know, if you're coming from this feminine perspective, then you're supposed to be kind of soft and yielding and you know, relaxed and in the flow all the time. And I think we see from the goddesses on our Wheel of the Year that goddesses are not passive and receptive, and being in your feminine does not mean that you are just super chill and going with the flow. Sometimes you are creating volcanoes, sometimes you are raging, sometimes you are devouring, sometimes you are tearing everything down, sometimes you are building it back up. And there is a kind of an insidious little sneaky little overlay sometimes that comes through in those New Age philosophies that is, while claiming to be about female empowerment, can actually be about putting women back into a different kind of box, kind of dressed up. like let's have this be oppression, but make it spiritual instead. And so that's not the perspective that I come from. I come from the perspective that goddesses are full of power. They're full of power, they're full of energy, and they're actually full of action, full of agency, full of sovereignty, full of creation and destruction, full of rage and renewal, full of love and anger. And they have all of those things included with them. We're not going to strip it back and make ourselves only be the love and light and sweetness and the gentle, passive, receptive, ideal of what it means to be feminine instead. Anyway, so that was a small side note there, because Baba Yaga is a little bit intimidating. So, and some people wouldn't consider her a goddess. They would consider she would be a part of folklore. But what I find is when there is a powerful female associated figure from folklore, from mythology, from fairy tales, from anything, from stories, from legend, it's usually a goddess in disguise. And there's perhaps she's lost some of her power in the repetition of the story. She's had something removed from her, but underneath it, there's a goddess. So Baba Yaga is a figure from Slavic folklore with a presence in Ukraine, Russia, and Belarus. Living in a hut on chicken legs, Baba Yaga is associated with death, the underworld mystery, and the fountain of life, or the waters of life and death. She is a mysterious trickster, a figure often feared for her association with the shadows and the things that lurk there. She's also a helpful grandmother and an ancient earth goddess and a wise crone. She knows deep secrets and forgotten powers. She's associated with the deep woods, with forests, with spiders and wolves, as well as with protection, patience, and renewal. Complex and mysterious, she is the face of ambiguity and uncertainty, as well as of the ingenious creativity and tenacity of the crone. Ingenious creativity and tenacity of the crone. So much to consider with Baba Yaga. And so then we have the Cailleach and Cailleach, and Cailleach is the Cailleach is a Celtic goddess of many faces and associations. Again, multifaceted, not single aspect. She's often known or experienced as the divine, and this is our Yule goddess. And she's often associated or experienced as the divine hag, the crone goddess, and the queen of winter. She's associated with wolves, and she's sometimes called the veiled one. She's known, again, as both a creator and a destroyer, and is a protector of animals and the land. She's also associated with cauldrons and magic and enchantment and mystery and all kinds of things. So these are our 8 goddesses for our inspiration, our goddess guidance inspiration Wheel of the Year. This is our Council of Goddesses who will inspire, inform, and guide us as we work together through 2026 with the Goddess Magic Mystery School. So thank you so much for listening and watching, and I hope you enjoy exploring the wisdom of this Council of Goddesses.